Okay. Next, Rock Vitale.
Good
Okay.
afternoon.
Hi, Rock. Please
Okay.
proceed.
Chairpersons and esteemed members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of SB2, an act concerning artificial intelligence. My name is Rock Vitale, and I'm the founder of Easie, an AI implementation company that has been working in the field since 2018, long before ChatGPT and other AI tools were mainstream. Easie helps businesses implement AI systems for automated data extraction from documents to support compliance in regulated industries like insurance and finance. We also have supported major university research by using AI to extract data from historic primary source documents. I also serve as the chair of the Technology Council for the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. SB2 is a critical step in ensuring AI is used responsibly while allowing businesses to continue to innovate. Some have suggested that the bill mirrors the EU's AI Act, imposing heavy-handed regulations. This is misleading, as SB2 is tailored for the US business environment, and even major AI companies have called for greater transparency in AI governance. The idea that this bill stifles innovation appears to come from a misunderstanding of how AI systems are already used in practice rather than specific provisions in the bill itself. As a small business doing engineering work in AI every day, I appreciate the thorough discussion today, which is critical to this process, and I want to highlight a few key points that have not been fully addressed. Number one, impact assessments for developers and deployers of high-risk AI systems are critical. AI influences hiring, lending, healthcare, housing, and many other key areas. Businesses using high-risk AI should evaluate risks, and many leading AI companies, including Microsoft, OpenAI, and Google, already conduct AI impact assessments and bias audits as best practices. The free market alone does not prevent AI from making discriminatory decisions, as seen in past cases of biased hiring, sentencing, and lending algorithms. Number two, minimizing algorithmic discrimination is essential. AI systems can reinforce biases if not properly tested. Today, not in the future or hypothetically, we've seen what happens when unfiltered AI systems generate racist and discriminatory content, such as the recent release of Grok 3 by XAI. Some argue existing anti-discrimination laws are enough, but those laws were not designed for AI-driven decision making. AI bias can be hidden, which is why proactive assessments are necessary. Number three, transparency in AI interactions increases trust. Individuals should know when they're engaging with an AI system rather than a human. AI that operates in the shadows erodes public trust, slows adoption, and actually harms innovation. At the same time, I encourage the committee to consider deeper exemptions for small businesses. SB2 already includes education and phased implementation for small business, but compliance requirements should be truly proportional. AI should not become an area where only the largest corporations can afford to compete due to regulatory complexity. I'm also glad to see Charter Oak State College included in the bill. Its partnership with Google to launch the Connecticut Online AI Academy was a great first step, and SB2 further expands AI training to build an AI literate workforce in Connecticut. In closing, AI is one of the most transformative technologies of the century, and Connecticut has an opportunity to lead in responsible AI adoption while preparing its workforce for the future. This bill strikes the right balance between innovation and accountability, and I support its passage. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Great. Thank you very much. Senator Ciccarello.
Thank you. I just have a quick question for you. Easie, you're the CEO of Easie?
Yes.
And can you explain, like, what do you guys do? What kind of a service do you provide?
So we do implementation focused services for automated systems. So we're primarily right now working in AI implementation for extracting data automatically from documents. So we've been working in insurance and finance to help compliance teams extract data automatically to speed up processes. And we've also participated in research to help universities extract data from primary source documents to research topics like historical protest dynamics, for example. But long story short, we're implementing AI and automated systems for the private sector and the public sector.
Would your company provide this type of checks and balance for small business to make sure they're in compliance?
So we, as a service provider, would not be doing impact assessments. Rather, we would be participating in helping companies implement systems which may be subject to the requirements of the bill.
Got it. Because I was just trying to determine what the cost would be to companies to make sure they're gonna, be within the guidelines of this legislation. I'm just trying to determine what that cost would be for certain size businesses, small, medium, large. And I'm just trying to figure that out. I didn't know if you could answer that question.
Well, and that's where, when I'm looking at the existing exemptions for small businesses, I know that it does include some phased implementation and education for smaller businesses. And what I would say is just providing more sort of detail on what the exemptions could look like, or come up with more of a framework for compliance requirements for small business, maybe a revenue-based or employee-based exemption threshold, and just having more technical guidance and maybe even templates for compliance, because I know that's sort of a major issue that can hinder small businesses, but as some people have pointed out, not hinder larger businesses. So I know there have been some exemptions in the past iteration of this in the last legislative session. So, to comment on the cost or sort of the methodology, it's sort of hard to say.
Okay. Thank you very much for taking the time to testify and answer my questions.
Thank you. Rock, you discussed the impact assessment requirement. Do you use any algorithms, or have you also mentioned you had some proprietary algorithms? Are there any you use that you have run impact assessments for? And can you just walk us through that process if you have?
So generally, when we're using our systems that are in production right now, we do different types of testing on it. In terms of the sort of impact testing, generally we are relying on sort of the standing on the shoulders of giants phenomenon, where we are using, in some cases, systems like Google Gemini or OpenAI, or in some cases, the Anthropic suite, where, as a small business, we're largely leaning on sort of impact testing that they've done. In terms of the sort of testing that we do for models to try and come up with edge cases, we do try to, essentially break them in terms of how we're interacting with them. We try and get them to perform unexpected outputs. And to the extent that we can, we try and put sort of performance requirement or performance controls in place. But in terms of sort of formal impact assessments and what we're talking about that would be required in SB2, outside of this sort of destructive testing, it's, I would say, less sort of systematic than it could be if there was more of a framework in place. But largely we are relying on the sort of larger scale corporate impact testing that's done at this time.
Okay, great. And I like your idea of the templates. I think that especially if we're giving a rebuttable presumption that you've done what you need to do, if you've run an impact assessment, I think we probably should ask the AG to have samples of what that minimum impact assessment would look like, or creating other tools. Now, so I like your idea on the technical guidance and templates for compliance. Deeper exemptions for small businesses. I guess I'm of two minds here. I'm going to be honest. Like, I think that when you look at TREGA, the Texas Responsible AI Act, and the Texas Data Privacy Act, they exempt anyone who's defined as a small business under the SBA. Actually, and the Texas Data Privacy Act points to an important thing. It's not always the strength of the law, it's the strength of the enforcement. Their AG has a lot of money to enforce, and even though our law may be seen as stronger, they're doing a lot of enforcement on their data privacy law down there. But anyways, I'm not sure about a blanket exemption, because again, if what we're looking at is trying to protect against disparate impacts and discrimination, I don't know if just because you're small, you should be allowed to discriminate, right? However, that's one concern. But the other concern is the recognizing that small businesses aren't going to be able to implement the full NIST risk management framework, or they may not be able to. So I'm wondering if, and you may not be able to tell me this now, what are the pieces that are the most onerous, right, that you would say that a small business may need to be exempted from? And then I would also just point to, we don't give a specific small business exemption this time, but instead we give what I call an off-the-shelf exemption, whereas if the developer contractually takes the liabilities. So if you're using you're screening tenants, and the company that has developed the software takes on the liability, then you're no longer liable as a deployer. And last time we set that at 50 employees. This time We just said as long as someone's liable, it doesn't really matter to us, right? If someone's taking on the liability. But I don't know if, and it may take you time to let me know, one, if that off-the-shelf exemption you think suffices, or two, if you could just look through and point to things that you feel would be particularly onerous for a small business.
Those are great points. And I think that there is a lot to be said about when we're talking about people using AI systems, large and small businesses, even businesses that have their own systems, many of them are actually using the frontier models that I mentioned. The majority of businesses that call themselves AI companies are actually using the OpenAI, Google, or Anthropic suite, and as well as some open source tools like the Meta products. And I would say, like, in terms of the sort of passing the burden from deployers to developers under certain conditions, that would definitely be helpful. I'd say one of the more onerous requirements is just understanding, like we kind of already touched on, exactly what the impact assessment requirement would look like and exactly what compliance would look like. So a compliance checklist, like we said, assessment tools that might even be available for free for people, things like that, where you can kind of generate these compliance documents and comply in a sort of lower cost way, I think would be really helpful. Just saying, here's exactly how you do it. And then sort of besides that, I think having as clear a possible definition for high risk AI use cases as possible. So, if a company's using AI internally for efficiency rather than making these consequential decisions about people's lives, just making sure that's as clear as possible so that, someone doesn't necessarily have these requirements or think they're subject to these requirements when maybe they're actually not. Because I think the other key point is that we're talking about these high risk use cases rather than, say, someone using ChatGPT to write an email.
Right. And agreed. We have to get the definition of the high risk use cases. And I think there are some free tools. I think it's just we have to identify them and make sure that perhaps we have the AG put links to those on their website. I know CIO.gov has an impact assessment, or it used to. I haven't looked in a while. Canada, I've found one, and one of the universities has some free impact assessment tools as well. So, but you're right. I think technical guidance and templates for compliance would be are something we definitely need to look into. All right. Are there any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Rock, thank you very much.
Thank you.